Justin, I thought we would talk to start with you a bit and talk a little bit about your life in the '60s. You were very much a man about town, if you will, and living your life very much in front of the camera. So how did the '60s start off for you?
It was so different than it is now, the '60s. But when I managed Twigs, I was a manager, entrepreneur, doing that sort of thing. But I didn't start doing photographs until New York. And we were doing a session with Bert Stern. I don't know if you know Bert Stern. He did a wonderful film called Jazz on a Summer's Day. So in the '60s, that was a huge influence on the mods in London, or modernists as we were then. And he became a hero of mine. So when Twigs and I went to New York, we worked with Heathen and Mel Sokolsky, fabulous photographers. And Bert and I became friends. So one day, Twigs was booked to do something. And we got to the studio early, and he had one of those wonderful models in front of a roll of paper. And then there was a hairdresser doing her hair and a makeup artist doing her makeup. And his camera was there, and he had an assistant doing his camera. And then he had a separate lighting man. It was like a big deal. And I'm looking at that, and he came down stairs from his office. And the other guy, the assistant, said, strike the pose, and the girl did the pose. He clicked the picture, and then he walked back upstairs. I said, Justin, mate, you're a photographer. So that's how I became a photographer. So when I got back to London, I knew David through Lindsay Kemp, I don't know, the dancer. And I'd seen David dancing with Lindsay's company, but I didn't know him. He had extraordinary dancers and stuff. So I knew David then, but not as a friend. Then later, I just finished producing a film, The Boyfriend. I don't know if any of you've seen that, with Ken Russell. And we were promoting it in Hollywood, and Twigs and I were staying at the Bel Air Hotel. And one of my closest buddies was Peter Frampton. And Peter popped in to see me, and he said, oh, have you seen this album? And he said, oh, this is the kid that my dad taught. And his dad was David's teacher. I went, oh, yeah, okay. He said, you like it? Because he sings Twig the Wonder Kid in it. So I thought, oh, I like him, right? So we'll have some of that. Show the dog the rabbit. Anyway, so he played it. The album was fabulous, and I was hooked instantly. So when I got back to London, I got in touch with David, and we used to hang out a bit. And the whole time that we were hanging out, I never noticed something. I never noticed his eyes. And we were talking, and I'd just done the cover for Vogue magazine. And David said over dinner, he said, oh, I'd love to be the first man on Vogue. I said, I'll have a go. And I had a meeting with Bea Miller, who was the editress of Vogue. And it took me sort of weeks to talk her in to do a man on the cover of Vogue. So anyway, at last she agreed, and we flew to Paris because David was recording in Paris. And when I got there, I took Pierre Laroche with me, because he did the fabulous How's Your Father, Crash, Bash, Sausage and Mash. And so when we got to the studio, and I think I shot 3 rolls of film, which is relevant, because it was to be the cover of Vogue. And as I'm looking in the camera, it's the first time I noticed his mince pies were different colours. I hadn't noticed before. I'd met him loads of times. And anyway, and I said, David, what the mince pies? He said, oh, when I was a kid, I had a fight in the playground, and my best mate hit me in the eye with a brick. But apparently he's told 10 different stories about that. he told a porky pie. But anyway, I did the picture, and I shot it as I did for headshots with a Hasselblad. So I did 3 rolls of film, and because it was a Vogue cover, it was an interesting thing. On the 3 sheets, which I think you've got, the transparencies, David, because it's cover, is so professional, he kept the look straight at the camera. So every sort of picture is the same for 3 times 36. I can't add up that. Anyway, but Twigs, if you notice on the pictures, she's moving about because she's a professional model. So they're all slightly different. Anyway, because I had a Hasselblad, just to check my lighting, Polaroid used to do a special back for the camera. So at the end of it, I shot a picture with the Polaroid back on so I could show David the picture. So I said, this is the cover, David. But there we go. Anyway, I got a phone call about a day later from David, and he said, Justin, I love the cover. Can I use it for my album? I said, David, you've driven me crackers to get you on the cover of Vogue. And now I said, I can't, Vogue, and they commissioned it. Anyway, I said, how many albums do you think you're going to sell? And he said, I don't know, 1 million. And I thought, hang about. So I thought Vogue will do probably 80,000. So I called him back. I said, David, it's your album cover. And Vogue never spoke to me again. That was the end of me working for Vogue. Anyway, have I spoken to that?
No, that was good. Vernon, what was your journey to meeting David in terms of the 60s, and what were you doing before?
If this is switched on. Hello? Okay. I met David back in 67. When, of course, he was virtually unknown at the time. And I moved into a flat, or a house actually, with my girlfriend. We had a room there. And David had the room just over on the top of us. So it was a sort of communal house for everybody. Just one kitchen, I think there might have been 2 bathrooms, I'm not sure. But so a sort of a strange mixture of people. There was, my girlfriend was a model. There was David upstairs with Hermione, who was a dancer. Just sort of businessy type guy, and a secretary type girl, and Briege, the owner of the Luce, was a dress designer. So it was sort of a mixture of 60s type people. And like I say, David for me, there was the young guy upstairs who was trying to become a pop singer. And my first sort of meetings with him was this really very natural guy, very pleasant, very easygoing, tremendous sense of humour, who was doing his own thing and getting it together very much. I could see immediately there was a lot of talent there. He wasn't just trying it on, he had really got the talent. So that was how I first met him, and we got on really well, became quite good friends, and I used to hang out with him upstairs in his flat. And that was where I first heard Space Oddity. He was playing it on his thing. What was it called? Xylophone. Xylophone, which I thought was good. I couldn't understand how you could possibly want to play that on a record. The sound of it was awful, really. But the actual record, it came out very well. It's sort of metallic, sort of very modern sound. But when we used to hang out, we used to go to Sundays. We used to go to a place called I think it's called Albino's on the corner of Gloucester Road. Sit and read the Sunday papers and drink coffee, and every now and again we'd go down to Carnaby Street, where there was a good place to score. long gone. Carnaby Street in those days was not pedestrianised. You could drive down it, and about halfway down there's a club, and I can't remember what the name of the club was, but it was next door to the Roaring Twenties. And if you just slowed down and wound your window down, 2 or 3 guys would immediately come up and offer you their wares in a very civilised manner. So that was quite a famous place. But no, David for me was, basically to start off with, just the guy upstairs, a very nice guy. Obviously going places, lots of ambition and lots of talent.
How did the album cover come about? Were you working as a photographer at that time? Did he know that?
Yeah, I was a photographer at that time and working from Studio 5 in Mayfair. David asked me if I'd go down and take some pictures at his art slam gig in Beckenham, Bromley, so I went down to this pub, the 3 Tons, I think it was called. And, terrible lighting, really dark. A couple of old, sort of like cinema type spots. Real spit and sawdust sort of place. But, so I did some pictures down there, which I could only do the best I could in the conditions. But when I showed them to David, he really liked them. And he asked me,
Some of those photos, some of the early live photos are in the book.
well, he put some in the book, yeah.
But because you just recently found those.
No, I've always had those.
Yeah.
The ones I just recently found were the pictures we shot for the cover,
Right.
the portraits.
Yeah.
So when David saw the pictures, he asked me if I'd go and show them to Governor Mark Lee at Mercury Records, who's the A&R of Mercury Records at that time. In Kensington, so I went down to Calvin, who was the most extraordinary 60s sort of guy. He was an American Chinese from San Francisco. He had long hair down to his waist. He always wore a blue velvet Pierre Cardin suit with a silver diffraction star in his forehead. And he was the A&R guy. He was also in love with David, infatuated by him completely. And so he liked the pictures, and a little bit later on, I think it was David who asked me if I'd do the cover for Space Oddity. So we got together with Calvin. Calvin was a big collector of Vito Razzarelli prints, the op artist. He had a big collection of them, and they wanted to incorporate one of the Vazzarelli prints in the cover. Their initial idea was just to photograph, David standing in front of the cover, which I didn't think would work terribly well. So I suggested we try and make David emerge from the print, from the painting. Wasn't quite sure how we'd do it, but so we decided to do that. So we shot in the end at my studio in St Michael Street. We shot the Vazzarelli, and we shot David first. Just quite simply against the black background. Some of them with a halo light from behind to show his hair up, and some without. Basically, just the one picture, looking straight out of the camera. Very, very slight changes in expression. And then afterwards, I gave it to the printers to comp it together, which took quite a long while because this is pre-digital age. Everything had to be done mechanically. So it took them a while, but I wasn't terribly happy with the final result. If I did it these days, I'd use Photoshop and it'd be a lot better. But that's the best we got.
Yeah.
And it's lasted.
And it has, well, it has become one of the most iconic, probably, album covers around. Now, Justin, in terms of pinups, I remember you telling me you had an issue with the skin tone because Twigs was unusually tan at the point.
We'd just returned from the Bahamas and we both had tans. And when I put them next to David, I wanted to shoot them from the shoulders. So I said, well, you know, put a towel around, whatever. So they were both bare shouldered. And then I suddenly realised I'm looking at the thin white Duke, and the Twiggy's dark and tanned, and he was pure white. So I thought, well, I've got a problem here. So I had a chat with Pierre Laroche, and then we decided to paint masks. And I've always been fascinated with masks. And that's how it came about. And a lot of people don't realise at first the difference in the skin colours of David, because everyone's used to David being pure white anyway, and especially when he used to do his things with Lindsay, they were always sort of that mime business with slightly Japanesey as well. But anyway, we decided on the mask, and I think it works. You don't really look down and see the body colours because they were both the same skin tones on the masks. And I think a few people have used that since, the mask thing, but I've always been fascinated with that.
And I know, Vernon, that you moved to Paris, and Justin, you moved back town quite frequently. Did you stay in touch with David at all, or as his star?
Not really. I mean, this is before mobile phones, before the internet, so it was quite difficult to keep in touch with people. But also, David was at the stage where his career was taking off, and I had left the country basically, so we didn't have a lot of contact. The only contact we had of that was when he was coming to Paris, and he left a message with my agent saying he's going to be at such and such a restaurant, can I come around and see you? By the time I got the message, because I was living in a hotel at the time, by the time I got the message, got to the restaurant, they'd moved on somewhere else, so we never caught up. So, the last time I saw David was when he did his concert at the South Bank, the festival, Personae Room, I think it was. And, he got me tickets for that, and I went along and saw that. And, that was the last time I saw him.
And you, Justin, did you stay in touch at all?
Yeah, we used to hang out a lot. I remember going to see the New York Dolls at Bieber's with him. I used to manage bands as well, so I was in the rock and roll business. For example, I used to manage Jack Bruce when Cream broke up. I formed the Jack Bruce band. So I was involved with bands going to Bieber's. Bieber's, some of you might remember Bieber's, but there was a wonderful rainbow room at the top, and it was perfect for concerts. One of the artists I managed was Tim Hardin, and I'd put on a concert with Tim. And my chum was Fitz, Barbara Hulanicki's husband, and Fitz decided to bring over the New York Dolls because they were coming to London or to play there. And David and I had a great evening watching the New York Dolls, and I think they were an influence on him. They were obviously hugely influenced by David, but it was sort of his cup of tea, that. So now there's something else. I had dealings with somebody in America, a naughty person, sort of said they owned my picture and had sold it to American Harper's Bazaar. So I had to call, the rascals, they needed a Chinese burn. Anyway, I called David in Bermuda, and he called Harper's Bazaar for me and sorted that out.
Vern, for your photo shoot for Space Oddity, there's kind of like visual effects going on around David. Was that done in the camera? So would you like to like grease on the lens or something?
Exactly.
It was that okay? Sorry, answer my question.
You had a little piece of glass like that, and with Vaseline, you make a round circle, clear bit in the middle, so that it just diffused like that.
Okay. Yeah, because I wondered if that's done afterwards or before. Now I know. So you don't have shots without it, because it's
Yeah, we did some with that, some without it. Like I say, these days in Photoshop, you do a clip and it doesn't happen.
Yeah, we used to have soft lenses, didn't we? We
That's
put
right,
on
we did, yeah.
called soft art.
Soft art,
Soft
yeah.
eye. I'd forgotten that.
Hasselblad.
I used to do that and put Vaseline just round the edge.
Yeah, yeah.
I used to do it for all my headshots,
Yeah.
just to soften the picture. Not for your effect, not to do that, but just to soften the picture.
Hasselblad made 3 versions of soft art from strong.
Yeah, that's right.
And they were brilliant. I mean,
Yeah.
lots of companies made these soft art filters, but Hasselblad, I reckon.
They were the best ones. Yeah.
Yeah, question for Justin might be stupid. Why couldn't the Pinups cover photo be used for Vogue as well?
Good question there. Yeah. I don't, it's because they weren't speaking to me. It's because they had the raging needle. That's probably why. But something did happen. They liked the idea, and then a little while later, one of my partners, Leonard, who's the hairdresser, and he was making a film with Ryan O'Neill and Marissa Berenson. And they actually, Vogue then did a cover with the man, and it was with Ryan O'Neill. Barry Lyndon was the film. Leonard did the hair and those wonderful wigs for it. And with the Barry Lyndon thing, they shot Ryan O'Neill and Marissa Berenson. So they eventually did get their man on the cover.
They listed Trick, didn't they? Because in 1973, when Pinups came out,
Yeah.
Bowie.
Oh, absolutely.
So they really cut their throats by
Well, yeah, but it was a different ball game, and they were very pleased with themselves, Vogue, at the time, and they took umbrage quite, but it's not the same now. Does anyone read Vogue anymore? I don't think. But there was a nice thing. About 6 months later, I was driving along Sunset Boulevard, and I'd forgotten about it. And as I was driving along with Twigs, there was a 6-foot poster on the strip of Pinups, and I think that was my greatest moment. I went, whoa, Coco Dicko, and there it was, Sunset Boulevard. Oh, yeah.
You should have got out of the car in that first.
I know. Well, you didn't then. I mean, if I had an iPhone then, but one of my partners, believe it or not, was Fred Astaire. We were making a film together. I used to stay with Fred in Hollywood. And I never once, you wouldn't dream of saying, can I do a picture? Oh, I wish I'd be a multi-millionaire now with all the pictures.
We did do the cover of Audrey Hepburn and Mel Ferrer. There was a famous cover with Audrey Hepburn and her husband. They had done it once at least.
They done who?
Audrey Hepburn and her husband.
No, I know
Yeah,
Mel
yeah.
Ferrer. I knocked
Yeah,
him
yeah.
out once. Yeah. You want to hear the story? One of the reasons that I was partners with Fred, we were going to make a film together, and it was a William Faulkner book called The Wishing Tree. It was owned by Jack Lemmon. When Jack knew that Fred wanted it, instead of asking money, he gave us the rights to the book. And to get the money for it, our director was Richard Quine, who had done 3 films with Fred. He'd also done Bell, Book and Candle, so it was the right guy. So the 3 of us trying to put it together. And it wasn't easy because the film companies didn't take Fred seriously as a straight actor, because it was a straight film. And because there was no dancing in it, we had a problem. So Richard Quine said, look, I've got this dodgy old film. Do you think if Twigs does it, the producers, it was the Bing Crosby Productions, but Bing had already sold it on. We'll put the money up for your film. So we did the film. The unfortunate thing, Mel, what's the geezer's name?
Terrence, what's his name? Mel.
Audrey
Hepburn's. Mel.
Yeah, and he was the producer, and he was the most unpleasant person. Also, I was in love with Audrey Hepburn. There's a lot of those, and he treated her very badly. He was an unpleasant man, and he did a horrible trick to Twigs on the set, because one of the scenes she had to put her finger into a light socket, and of course he said it shouldn't be on. It reminds me of what happened with the shorting. I was just thinking that. And I wasn't there. I would never be about when she was working. And he promised her that it wasn't on, and the director said, no, it's not on. And then Mel Frere instructed that it was turned on. So when Twigs in the scene put her finger in, she actually got a horrid shock. And I was staying at the Bel Air at the time, and she actually was brought home crying and stuff. Anyway, the next morning, I was in her dressing room before the filming started, and there was a knock on the door. And I opened the door, and it was Mel Frere. Whack! I knocked him spark out. He's gone down on the deck. He's come on the deck, and then he stood up, and I thought, oh, hold on, I thought he'd stay down. And he went like that, and I thought, oh, he's got the gun in there. He went out, and he got the comb out, and he combed his hair, and he walked off. True story. True story.
Yeah. Defending. Any other questions? Go ahead.
With all the makeup on, how long did the shoot actually take?
To do the makeup?
No, the actual shoot entirely with all the makeup as well.
The actual shoot itself probably took 10 minutes at the most, because they were there. I knew what I wanted, and I say David knew what I wanted. He was so professional, and Twigs, knew what to do, and it was easy. In fact, the first shot I took was the picture, the very first click. But you felt you had to keep going, and then in case. And I had a fantastic assistant, a guy called Chris Killip, who then became a professor in Hollywood, one of the big universities, a very famous photographer, Chris Killip. Yeah, what was that wonderful book he did? The Fact Year book. Anyway, my pictures, if it's good, is a lot to do with Chris Killip doing the lighting for me. It was my Bert Stern trick, as I told you before. So anyway, I always looked on myself as a director, hopefully having the eye, and it's using people like Pierre LaRoche to do the makeup, Chris Killip doing the lighting, bang. So, but the whole thing was in and out, probably in an hour, because David turned up with about 12 bodyguards and stuff, and also, which I was delighted, Mick Ronson came as well, most adorable, talented man, and I liked him, so it was very sad with Mick, but the whole thing in the studio out probably in an hour at the most, and Pierre was crash mash, sausage and mash, 2 kippers and a bonbon, and it was all done.
Vernon, how long did it take you? How long did the session last for these?
We knew exactly what we needed, so it was just a question of sitting David down, moving the lighting around, and then shooting, I think, with 3 rolls. That's not bad. So I would think probably no more than 3/4 of an hour to an hour maximum. But,
It was a joy to work with, wasn't it?
It was a pleasure to work with. He was so cooperative and so creative himself.
Yes.
He would do anything you like and add his own twist to it. So,
Yeah.
No, it was a great shoot. No problem at all.
I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. I really appreciate it. Thanks again to Bowie 75 for hosting us. Thank you to Vernon Dewhurst and Justin de Villeneuve.